Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Screencast-O-Matic presentation on firewalls. This was put together by our group, Edward Wilson, Adrian Duffy, and Aaron Martinez, all contributed to the project. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about what a firewall is. A firewall is what keeps you protected from things outside your network that are on the internet, all those bad people that want to get in. It lets only approved traffic out and allows only approved traffic in if it's configured correctly, and the bad guys just bounce off. If you ever want to see an example of how to do it wrong, just put a brand new server out on the internet with no firewall and see what happens. Hardware-based and software-based firewalls. A software-based firewall is like Windows Firewall. Probably everybody's running that. We saw a demonstration of Komodo earlier. And a hardware-based firewall will have software on it, but it is tied to a specific piece of hardware. It's heavily integrated with that hardware, and a lot of times has a more robust or industrial design. The one we're actually going to be looking at, called Untangle, is a little bit of a hybrid of both of those. Software firewalls often used on personal devices. Hardware firewalls usually protecting an entire network lying behind the firewall. Most people will use both. So for instance, in our environments, we run Windows Firewall sitting behind a hardware-based firewall. Open source versus closed source. Open source, the community works on the firewall, develops the firewall, makes it better. Oftentimes those offerings are free, which makes them very attractive. In our case, for instance, we have Untangle free, but we also have a premium version that you can pay money for, and we'll talk about the difference of that there later. Sometimes they're a little bit janky. A lot of different people have worked on them that can make it feel like there's a lot of personality in the product. Maintenance can be slower, support can be slower. But generally, open source is improving over time. We've got a lot of great open source products out there. Closed source products, of course, often have a little bit better content with paid developers, better maintenance. I know for our Juniper firewalls, we have state and local contracts with that, so we're able to call up and get a tier 3 technician whenever we need to. They are often more expensive, but sometimes better maintained. Easy to use? I'm not sure. This Untangled firewall is absolutely brilliant in terms of its ease of use. And if you've ever dealt with Cisco and Juniper, intuitive is not a word often applied to those firewalls. We looked at IPFire. Saw someone had a demonstration of that. Ours was Untangle, and we'll walk through that here in a little bit. We've got Komodo and Zone Alarm. Both of those were reviewed, as well as Private Firewall. These are the nice Windows-friendly looks. One of the things that you want to remember about Untangle as we're reviewing it here is that it is not a software-only firewall that you're just going to open up within Windows like some of these others. It's actually designed to replace the entire underlying operating system. So don't download this and install it expecting to open it in a window. If you were successful in installing it, it would replace Windows and you would boot directly into the Untangle interface and your Windows would be entirely gone. It's turning whatever device it's installed on into that purpose-built machine that we talked about earlier. So let's go ahead and take a look here and do some installation. In order to start that, we're going to go ahead and bring up Hyper-V. Now, I should mention here that the school did give us VMware Workstation. I installed VMware Workstation, very intuitive, very quick. It was working great. And then I ran into a licensing issue. I called them up. I found the error code. They said, hey, try this and this and that. And if it doesn't work, give us a call. I called them. They said, what's your support contract? I said, my school gave this to me for free. They said, goodbye. And so I switched over to Hyper-V. Hyper-V is free and available in Windows 8, 8.1, and 10 Pro. It's a feature that you can enable on the workstation and then run virtual machines off of it. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But here at untangled.com, is our original source material. So we have a 32-bit version in step 1, you can see, versus the 64-bit version. 64-bit version is a little bit more resource intensive. We've got the ISO. Note down at the bottom there the OVA VMware appliance. If you are still running VMware, you can actually install this on a purpose-built appliance and it will run for that. I needed to use the ISO, so I went ahead and downloaded that. It's a fairly lengthy download, so we won't repeat that process here. We'll just go back to Hyper-V. Now, obviously, I've already got one of these running, but I wanted to show you, if you're not familiar with Hyper-V, real quick, how to set this up. There was some definite learning curve. Running in Hyper-V is not supported by Untangle, so there were some things to work around. If you want to build a virtual machine, and at the end of this, if you want to look at our PowerPoint, the last couple of pages are going to be a tutorial in opening up Hyper-V, installing it, putting your NIC cards in as virtual switches and so on. That'll walk you through that process and get you here. In order to build the machine, we right-click LTP99 here, which is my computer. That's my virtual machine host. And we come over here and we give it a name. So let's say I wanted to call this Untangled VM Demo. I could do that. I could store it in a default location, or I could browse to location. I've got a little setup here on my C drive, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in the Untangled VM Demo folder. Generation 1 versus Generation 2. Tried this in Generation True a variety of ways. Doesn't work. I was able to hack my way around most everything. Still couldn't get the Grub bootloader installed. A couple other problems, so eventually we gave that up. There is my 4 to 6 hour learning curve gift to you. We're going to use Generation 1. No problems with Generation 1. Startup memory, we're going to go to 2048. That'll be 2 gigs. Like so. Click Next. Dynamic memory is fine. We'll select one of our NICs. Again, more about that in the tutorial. And I'm going to browse back to that same location on disk C and shove my hard disk in there as well. Here's 40 gigabytes of hard drive, not 140, just 40. They want a little bit more hard drive space, but you don't need it. We'll install the operating system from the ISO that we downloaded earlier. I downloaded it into this folder from the web page that you saw. And we can click Finish, and it'll build a new virtual machine for us. So there's a quick free Hyper-V demo for you, and so on. Installing Untangled takes a long time, and you probably don't want to listen to me talk all that long. So we're just going to go ahead and use the one that I've been testing for the last couple of days here. Got it installed and just kind of sorting through the features and trying to understand it a little bit better. We've got that running in the background, and there's Untangled for us. I went ahead, I've got a domain here. I went ahead and pulled a machine off of my network and put it on Untangled. We can see that over here in our configuration. Look at our network. Email, if you want to run email through it, it'll screen email or direct it to a certain place, do some spam filtering for you. Here we can see our external and internal cards. Down here, note that you can add a tagged VLAN interface. VLAN tagging is pretty nice. That's, I believe, new in Untangled 12. We have port forward rules if you want to put in some remote access. This is currently functioning as a GHCP server. It's picked up several items on my network. The kid's Wii is now on it. Go figure. There are apps that you can download. This little warning up here tells me I've got 2 redundant ones. I originally tried this with the free version, and I was not as impressed with the free version. I'm going to give you one example. If you see over here, it's telling us, hey, you've got 2 apps that are the same. That's because I've got WebFilter and WebFilter Lite in here. WebFilter Lite is deprecated. It's no longer really maintained. It's got a database of about 1 million websites in it. Compare that, I believe they said 450 million websites on WebFilter. WebFilter Lite lets you block, any of like 15 or 20 different categories, whatever it is. WebFilter, it's got over 100 categories that you can go in there. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But before we get into talking about WebFilter, it's much more fun to go and take a look at our dashboard. And we can bring up our widgets here on the side where we can manage those. I'm not going to look too much at those. I just want us to get in on the pretty pictures here. CPU load, I was a little bit disappointed. I was able to run this into the yellow and red line surprisingly easy. So I would definitely want a fairly robust device if I were running the full paid version, I believe. And here we've got generic information on our virtual machine, the resources that it's using. We can see our devices here, and we can go ahead and click on those. That'll be all of our devices that have found this. There's the Wii right there. And those are in the table. And of course, we've only got the one host that's running its internet connection. We've got that internet connection spread out all over the place. This will give you a heat map of what's being accessed where and when. Over time, we can take a look at our network usage. We can refresh those just to see what it's been doing recently. Over here, we've got some blocked sites. I'll talk about that just in a minute. Here's our web filter categories. Bandwidth control, application control, some other things we can't really cover here just because of time. But while we've got just a little bit, I want to show you some of the reporting qualities here. First off, beautiful picture. We can click this little arrow right here. That's going to take us off so that we can go ahead and look at some of the reports for the web filter. This is the one I just wanted to demo for you. Firewall stuff is very straightforward, very similar to what you're used to. This was kind of one of the things that I was interested in taking a look at. Web filters are just sort of an interesting hobby of mine. I've got a couple of clients who occasionally have people who try and beat them. In the police departments that we work for, we actually can't block too many sites because sometimes the detectives have to get out there to bad places and look around. So there's always an interesting web usage kind of a category. In order to test a web filter, sometimes I'll look at do a couple of buzzwords. Today on Yahoo, for instance, I noticed that apparently the naked bridal gown look is in fashion, so I went ahead and threw that into a Google search. One of the problems sometimes as we try and filter sites with objectionable content is that it's difficult to do. And when I put that into a Google search, I could pull down, I got a lot of objectionable content. Some buzzwords with Tumblr is another way I test that. It wouldn't let me visit any of the sites, but again, it's pulling down images, and for Tumblr, it actually let me visit the sites. Theoretically, this has a live algorithm. As it's resolving, it's going out, the algorithm is testing the site to see if it's safe, giving the information back to you. Later on, if it's a site that hasn't been visited, a human being will actually review that if it's flagged or blocked. But I was able to get all sorts of places, so I didn't actually find it to be terribly effective. But some things that I like down here, when you're filtering these various reports, this quick add, so I can bring in a host, and I can go through my list of hosts to see what the individual host was accessing. My picture here didn't change much because I've just got the one host that's accessing. But again, let's say I've got everybody up here, and I want to, these are all the sites that were being blocked. So that was good, but if I wanted to bring them up and I had a variety of machines, I could filter by machine, by time period, and so on. As we go back to our dashboard and we take a look, I can get that live picture of the last time period, and here we can see where I was testing that and got blocked. So that nice live picture of what's going on with your network is pretty cool. Okay, that's the dashboard, web filter, click for reports. We saw the different types of charts. There in the background as I was clicking buttons, you can download charts here. We see that. Remember that for Untangle, you have to have an Untangle account. I just registered with my school account, and that was fine. Final thoughts on this product. Very impressed with the GUI and the interface as I've been playing around with it. Looked at the pricing. The pricing did not seem to be substantially superior to what I'm able to get my Cisco and Juniper products for. Now, for me, for the clients, for my state and local government clients, I have to run IPsec VPNs. This is OpenVPN, so it wouldn't work for that anyway. But I was really hoping for a solidly affordable appliance for my small and mid-sized business market. It doesn't look like I'm going to save a lot of money switching over to Untangle. The potential upside of that is that, again, very pretty, very intuitive, very friendly, but I'm going to be looking, when I price this out, for a very substantial discount that I haven't seen so far. On the other hand, I've liked it enough that I am going to go ahead and ask them about it. That wraps up our presentation. You can see the end of the PowerPoint for our resources and references, and look there also for a tutorial on how to set up Untangle in Hyper-V, even though it's not supported. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.